Castaneda, Asif Hussain, and myself, Eva Lee. We did our study replication based on a study done by Stephanie Wack and her fellow colleagues from the University of Florida. Just like their study, our main focus was to increase distance for all participants, and I will give you an overview about the study on the next slide. Study overview. So our study included 3 participants that used goal setting to determine personal, short, and long-term running goals. The Nike application is what we used on our smartphone to track statistics like mileage, duration, etc. Participants showcased that personal goal setting, coach feedback, and the Nike application were beneficial to improving one's running distance. And we also did some running and physical activity research just to find out more about the health benefits of running. Sabo and Abraham stated that there were numerous health benefits along with a decrease in mental stress with running. And they also said that running a shorter distance, longer distance, faster pace, or slower pace may be expected to report or show similar health improvements. So the original study also showcases a variety of different types of runners, and so does our study. In our group, we all had different personal goals, and the study was shaped to the individual, so that was really beneficial for us. Whether someone ran more or less miles, it didn't matter. They were still getting out there and improving their health. And since running increases the temperature within the body, the temperature is then able to rise and enable a relaxation mode, which aids in decreasing anxiety, as Sabo and Abraham had mentioned in their findings as well. And although many can opt to do other types of exercising, running is quite inexpensive and flexible. Inexpensive as in you could just get not too expensive shoes and just start running, and flexible to where if you have a gym pass, you can use the treadmill, or if you don't have a gym pass like me, I usually just run around my neighborhood, so that's pretty convenient. And we also did more research on the goal setting portion. Locke mentioned that 99 out of 110 studies show a positive impact on goal setting and how this can be a motivational tool to exercise or perform in other areas, as well as the usage and increasing the amount of steps to be taken in a day by children, and goal setting to prevent excess weight gain for pregnant mothers. So based on these findings above, goal setting seems to be beneficial to a variety of age groups like children and pregnant women. And the next slide, goal setting research continued. Another study done was by Ward and Carnes. They focused on how self-set goals were used as an intervention in order to increase quantifiable skills, such as consistency with following plays or effectively tackling a ball carrier to stop their progress, in this case, football. And the results show that there was an increased performance in the intervention phase and includes generalization data from practice to actual games. And so within our study, we were all able to set short-term goals along with long-term goals. We thought both were beneficial, but we also did some research to see which type of goal was more beneficial. We found out that short-term goals were more effective because immediate feedback was given versus waiting for a longer duration to receive the feedback. And also when constructive feedback was provided and goal setting was high, this can result in better performance for the individual rather than only having the internal mentality of doing your best. And now JaNay will tell us more about the replication of the study.
Hello, so the purpose of the study was to replicate the study done by Stephanie Wack, Kimberly Crossland, and Raymond Miltenberger from the University of Florida. In the study, the participants used goal setting and receiving personal feedback to increase weekly running distances to reach an overall running distance by the end of the study. The participants In the study ranged from ages 24 to 27, and the participants included myself, JaNay, a female, age 24, Eva, a female, age 25, and Asif, a male, sorry, age 27. And all of the participants in our study are graduate level students. In the original study, there were 5 women ranging in ages from 18 to 28, so it's not too off, pretty similar. And we decided to participate and choose this study because exercise is something that we value to live a healthy lifestyle. And we all wanted to increase our running distances because they weren't exactly what we would have liked them to be. And for the setting of the study, each running episode completed was taken for Eva and I. We both live in Washington, so we were in Washington, and then Asif is in Florida. So it was either on the treadmill or outdoors in places that we lived. We all used the Nike Plus Run Club app, which I will elaborate on a little bit more later, but the app can accurately track distance ran on the treadmill and outdoors, which is why we had the option of choosing either one. So the materials that we used are the Nike Plus Run Club app and the mobile phone. The materials needed for the study are those ones. For the data collection system, we use the Nike Plus Run Club app. And this is actually it was super cool to see. The data is collected using it, and on the app, there's lots of statistics after each run, and they couldn't be changed. So it was a permanent product of our running episodes. The app would display your average running pace for the run in minutes per mile, the duration of the run, and the distance of the run. And there was a picture in the shape of a circle, which you can see on the PowerPoint here. And it would allow you to see at points in which you slow down or sped up during your run. So now I'm going to talk about the behavior definition in our study. And it was a running episode. And it was defined as maintaining a running speed of at least 4 miles per hour or a pace of at most 15 minutes per mile. A running episode begins when the speed goes over 4 miles per hour and ends when the running speed goes below 4 miles per hour, or if the speed goes over 15 minutes per mile. The app we used for our study was able to determine the pace at any given time. So if we stopped completely, or if our pace went where it shouldn't have been, it went higher, or any of that, the app would display it after the run and show us. So we were easily able to determine when a running episode began and end. So now I'm going to pass it on over to Eva.
Thanks, JaNay. So similar to the original study, we also used the multiple baseline design and changing criterion design. During baseline, the participants used the Nike app during each run, but did not set short or long-term goals. Baseline data collection lasted 2 weeks, and participants were able to choose 3 days out of the week to do 1 run session per day. And I'm going to get into the interventions. The original study had intervention 1 and intervention 2, and I will be explaining intervention 1. It consisted of the participants that set a long-term distance goal with the coach in 1 session, and they would also try to complete the goal by the end of the study. We also set a short-term running goal to run 1 running episode at least 3 times per week. And of course, during the 3 runs, 2 running episodes must be at or above criteria mileage. And also the most recent run has to be at or above criteria mileage as well in order to qualify as meeting the weekly goal. And the participant and coach would meet weekly to discuss running goals, and the participant would report whether or not he or she met the elements of the checklist. The coach would then determine if the participant met all of the checklist requirements and then proceed on collaborating whether the participant should stay at their goal, lower their goal, or increase their goal. So that's intervention 1. On to intervention 2. Should any of the participants fail to meet their goal for 2 consecutive weeks, they would have the option to use intervention 2. And intervention 2 is they require their participants to set a weekly goal as opposed to a daily goal of running 3 times a week. Participants were required to meet their mileage goal at or above criteria for 2 consecutive weeks before setting a new goal, and the last week could not fall below criteria level. So in the original study, some participants failed to meet their goal for 2 consecutive weeks, and then so they proceeded on to intervention 2. In our study, there were no participants that failed to meet their goals over 2 consecutive weeks. I think each of us just failed to meet our goal 1 time a week. So therefore, no one did the intervention 2 in our study. Inter-observer agreement. Data was recorded primarily by the participant as well as by another participant. For example, Asif would record data for JaNay and Eva, while JaNay would record data for Asif in order to maintain inter-observer agreement between all running sessions. Data was taken or extracted from the Nike Run Club app, and the inter-observer agreement data was assessed for 100% of the runs at 100%. With treatment fidelity, data is collected automatically via the Nike app, as mentioned before. Inter-observer agreement would be taken between 2 observers for all sessions to ensure that data are being assessed in the intended manner, also pulled from the Nike app. And below, this is the coach and runner checklist that we used every time we met up with our coach on a weekly basis. We had 7 requirements. Number 1 was 1 running week was defined as beginning Tuesday and ending Monday. Within 24 hours, only 1 running session was permitted at a time. And we met with our coach once a week at the end of the week, which was Monday. And when you did meet with your coach, you were able to provide documentation of your running sessions via the Nike app. And of course, at least 2 of the 3 running sessions are at or above the goal for that week. The last run also had to be documented at or above goal mileage for that week as well. And the run is above 4 miles per hour or no more than 15 miles per hour. And now to Asif for the result.
Hello. Just to go over the results, as Eva had mentioned earlier, during the intervention phase, we did not elect to do the second intervention, but it was important that we did mention that because we are replicating the study. The original intention was to do intervention 1, so we all tried to hit that goal, and we ended up doing that. This table here goes over the goals that we had set. As Eva had also mentioned, in each of our intervention phases, there was 1 week where we did not meet the goals, but from that point on, we did consistently increase our running goals. So in Eva's case, she did begin at wanting to run 1 mile per running session. In the second week, she did not meet that goal and instead elected to lower that goal, which is within the criteria for intervention 1. After that point, she did increase her running goals from 1.5 to 1.7. Within the 5-week phase, every single one of us were once again able to consistently increase our running distance. In Eva's case, her distance was recorded at an average of 2.8 miles per week in baseline, and ended up going to an average of 3.7 miles per week during the intervention phase. That's going from goal 1 to goal 5. We did see a significant increase in the last 2 weeks with an average of 5.4 miles per week, ranging from 4.9 to 5.9 miles per week. I should mention again that Eva did not meet her goal in the 2nd week and had elected to stay within the lower requirement on the 3rd week, which is why the data here looks the trend line is very even. But after that point, it increases consistently. In my case, in Asif's case, I started at an average of 0.8 miles per week in baseline, and ranging from 0.4 to 2.5 miles per week. Once again, I did meet 4 out of 5 of the goals in the intervention phase. Out of all of the opportunities in the intervention phase, I did meet 86% of the opportunities. In other words, out of all the goals that I had set, 86% of them I had met. There was one day I believe I didn't run, where that basically meant I didn't meet the criteria, and I had to stay in goal 1 for an additional week to be able to move up from that point on. In JaNay's case, she was able to increase her weekly goals from a mean of 1.8 miles per week in baseline to a mean of 5.6 miles per week in the intervention phase. The range was between 1.8 miles per week in baseline to 2.5 miles per week in the intervention phase. Similar to the rest of us, JaNay met the set goals for 4 out of 5 weeks, and she stayed within the parameters of her set goals for 80% of the opportunities. I forgot to mention earlier, but Eva also met 80% of the total opportunities that she had set her goals for. And in most of those cases, it was due to basically not running those days, as opposed to not actually meeting the set goals when they did run. I'm going to go ahead and put it back to JaNay now.
All right, so in conclusion, utilizing goal setting and personal feedback was an effective intervention to improve running distance per week and to meet an overall running distance goal. Participants in the study set weekly distance goals, and they would check with their coach, and in the end, or at the end of the week, to monitor their progress to determine if their goals had been met, and set a goal for the following week. Though there was 1 week for each participant in which they did not meet or we did not meet our weekly goals, none of the participants needed to move to intervention 2. And each participant still met their overall running distance goal by the end of the study. So the results from the original study had actually very similar outcome to ours. In the original study, not everyone stayed with intervention 1. Some participants did end up going to intervention 2, but even though they used intervention 2, all participants still ended up meeting their end distance goals. So that is concluding that goal setting and personal feedback can be an effective method for improving running distances per week. All right, Eva, back to you for limitations.
Thank you. So the limitations for our studies included limited time, no maintenance data, relying on smartphone device, and weather. So with the limited timing, with 2 weeks of baseline data along with 5 weeks of intervention data taking, the amount of time was limited. More time for the study would have allowed more data taking and a larger overview of sessions that were ran. Another limitation to the study was that there was no maintenance data. So therefore, we were unable to identify whether the participant would continue to engage in running behavior based on previous acquired skills that were unavailable to us. Other limitations had to do with having access to a working, reliable smartphone, and I know I had trouble with that. There were occasional glitches and smartphone malfunctions, like the phone shutting off during the middle of a run. For example, I was trying to meet my goal of 1 mile and I happened to be at 0.82 miles, and I was really close, and at 60% battery life, my phone shut off and I had to run home to charge it. Therefore, the malfunction in timing, I was unable to meet my goal of 1 mile for that day. And aside from the systems and data limitations, weather was also a limitation. For example, Asif mentioned that he would have to wait until nighttime to have the weather cool down, and sometimes it would still be scorching hot at 90 degrees at 11 p.m. where he lived. So he would have to run during the heat or postpone his run for later. I, as well, living in Washington, had to postpone my run sometimes for more feasible weather since there was a storm one week and a snow shower the other week. So that was a limitation for us. And here are our references that we used for our study. And this concludes our presentation about increasing running distance. Thank you all for watching.
Thank you.